Hello, and thank you for downloading Witness from the BBC World Service. And 50 years ago this week, a club opened in Chicago which captured the mood of a new generation.
Got myself a crying, talking, sleeping, walking, living dog.
It's 1960, and America is preparing to fall in love. Across the country, sexual freedom and post-war prosperity are about to sweep in a new era. And in the Midwest city of Chicago, the world's first Playboy Club has just opened for business.
Some clubs become hot just because they are hot. They become places where people want to go to be seen. Playboy, in its heyday in the 1960s, was the place, the most successful, the most popular club in New York, in Chicago, in London, everywhere in the world.
The club's owner and founder of the Playboy empire was Hugh Hefner, a man famous for his love of silk pyjamas and young female companions. 50 years on from his home in the Playboy mansion, he told me about that opening night.
We simply knew that we had a huge hit on our hands. It was very, very cold. It was the 29th of February. But despite that, there was a crowd lined up around the block. And the bunnies came out and actually, while people were waiting to get in, served them hot coffee in line.
The Playboy Club was a risky idea. The real-life incarnation of America's most controversial men's magazine, Playboy, famous for its semi-nude women and its bunny logo.
Of course, what made the clubs most popular was the bunnies in the bunny costumes, but the costume concept had not been completed. So the bunnies on that first night and for the first 2 or 3 weeks had the basic uniform with the ears and the tail, but they did not have the cuffs, the collars, and bow ties. I looked at the costume on that first night and said, there's something missing here. This looks like a bathing suit with a tail. And I did a little sketch on a piece of paper, and we added the collar and the cuffs, and that completed the costume and gave it the elegance.
Every bunny has 3 uniforms made for them. Each of these uniforms was made specifically for that bunny's figure, specifically to accentuate her good points and delete her negatives.
Did it change how you saw yourself?
Well, of course. Once you put that uniform on that was made specifically for your body, you were all dressed, had your cuffs on, your ears on, and your tail buttoned. And you looked in the mirror, you thought, hot golly, I'm a good-looking little chickie, you know. And that's what you'd think, because the uniform itself made you into something that you were not when you were on the street. And I made a lot of money.
Kelly Nelson was a Playboy bunny during those early years of the Chicago club. The uniform she loved caused a major stir in the city. Newspaper headlines screamed of lawsuits and widespread disapproval. And yet the Playboy Club remained somehow elitist, even respectable. Political figures, including a former US president, openly flaunted their membership, says Hefner. And he realised very early on that the club's success would depend on treading that very fine line.
Well, without question, there was controversy. I mean, and to a certain extent, we courted controversy. I mean, the magazine, the Playmate of the Month, was a semi-nude. The bunnies themselves were really not dressed any more scantily than you would see at the beach. And their conduct, always in the clubs, was beyond reproach, because our reputation was on the line. So the two things were simultaneously true. The club had a very high-quality reputation, but at the same time, in some quarters, it was controversial.
You were watched over by a room manager who reported to the bunny mother if you did anything improper, or you didn't have your proper uniform on, if you didn't wear your eyelashes one night, you know, this, that, and the other. If it wasn't proper, you were reported and you got merits and demerits. If you got 50 demerits, you had to take a long time to work those demerits off.
And how did you work them off?
Well, I spent a lot of time in my uniform, off the clock, cleaning shelves, cleaning the bar area.
Did you ever resent this sort of system of close watching and merits and demerits? I mean, it sounds a bit like you were almost being treated as school children, and yet here you were, grown adults, doing a paid job. Did it ever get to you?
To tell you the truth, I worked other places where I was cocktail or food waitress, and I could have, there are rude people everywhere, and you aren't near as protected in those other places as you were at Playboy. Anyone got the slightest bit out of line or had too much to drink and you had to cut them off, the room manager was there to protect you.
What were the room managers protecting you from specifically?
Well, anybody that got out of control, because, you're always going to get someone. When it was a group of men and they were rowdy about something or they'd been discussing, but sometimes they would get out of line, and they aren't allowed to touch a bunny. Nobody was, even in taking pictures, you could not put your arm around a bunny. You could not touch her. Off limits.
The Playboy Club quickly outgrew Chicago and spread to dozens of locations around the world. But as the brand grew, so did the rumours of sleaze. Many of them centred around the Playboy mansion, where Kelly and her colleagues lived alongside their boss, Hugh Hefner.
The bunny hutch was in one portion of the mansion, and they had 20 girls that lived there. And then on the other side were offices and Hefner's own private quarters. We had this humongous living room, and below the living room was a swimming pool with an underground bar that looked into the swimming pool. And you could slide down like a fireman's pole. And at the bottom of the pole were huge stuffed pillows. And that was the underground bar. And there was this big window that looked into the water. So we'd come home, and we'd run downstairs, strip, and go skinny dipping in the pool. I refused to ever do that because I never knew if somebody would be in that underground bar, and I just wasn't going to take the chance. But man, I'll tell you, it was fun. You're considered top of the fashion. You're considered beautiful. You're in daily contact practically with a great many Hollywood elite actors, actresses, mostly actors. And every day my mouth would fall open with who would show up next. When I look back, that was the most wonderful, fun, enjoyable, grandiose job I ever had.
20 years on, the concept had grown tired. Hefner's network of clubs dwindled to a handful, and in 1988, the last Playboy Club shut its doors forever. Until 4 years ago, when a new generation of Playboy Club was launched. 3, 2, 1. It's a beautiful day. A club for 21st century America, in the heart of Las Vegas, designed to recapture the old brand, style and sophistication, complete with casino, costumed waitresses, and on its outside wall, a giant, brightly lit Playboy bunny, beaming down on the Las Vegas Strip.
Lucy Williamson. For details of our complete range of podcasts and our terms of use, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.